Periodically, the President of the United States updates Congress and the American people on the country's status in the State of the Union address. Presidents also lay out their proposals and expectations for the coming year. This video presents our televised presidents, from Kennedy to Bush the Elder, and moments that summarize their vision or place in history. While showing youthful optimism, Kennedy highlights the dangers of the Cold War and a growing concern over conflict in Southeast Asia, namely Vietnam, in his January 14, 1963 speech.
Today, the United Nations is primarily the protector of the small and the weak, and a safety valve for the strong. Tomorrow, it can form the framework for a world of law, a world in which no nation dictates the destiny of another, in which the vast resources now devoted to destructive means will serve constructive ends. In short, let our adversaries choose. If they choose peaceful competition, they shall have it. If they come to realize that their ambitions cannot succeed, if they see their wars of liberation and subversion will ultimately fail, if they recognize that there is more security in accepting inspection than in permitting new nations to master the black arts of nuclear weapons and war, and if they are willing to turn their energies, as we are, to the great unfinished task of our own people, then surely the areas of agreement can be very wide indeed. A clear understanding about Berlin, stability in Southeast Asia, an end to nuclear testing, new checks on surprise or accidental attack, and ultimately, general and complete disarmament. For we seek not the worldwide victory of one nation or system, but a worldwide victory of men. The modern globe is too small, its weapons are too destructive, they multiply too fast, and its disorders are too contagious to permit any other kind of victory. To achieve this end, the United States will continue to spend a greater portion of its national production than any other people in the free world. For 15 years, no other free nation has demanded so much of itself. Through hot wars and cold, through recession and prosperity, through the ages of the atom and outer space, the American people have neither faltered nor has their faith flagged. If at times our actions seem to make life difficult for others, it is only because history has made life difficult for us all.
Lyndon Johnson, honing in on his experience as a legislator, laid out a plan for Congress. Despite the historical connection of LBJ to Vietnam, his efforts to bolster the economy, safeguard civil rights, and eliminate poverty played a more vital role in his agenda, as evidenced by his address on January 8, 1964.
Let this session of Congress be known as the session which did more for civil rights than the last 100 sessions combined. As the session which enacted the most far-reaching tax cut of our time. As the session which declared all-out war on human poverty and unemployment in these United States. Unfortunately, many Americans live on the of hope. Some because of their poverty, and some because of their color, and all too many because of both. Our task is to help replace their despair with opportunity. And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
President Nixon's historical mark occurred due to his resignation over the Watergate scandal, in which associates of his campaign broke into the Democratic Party headquarters at the Watergate Hotel. The appearance of a cover-up helped bring down the president. Still, before that happened, he attempted to bring a close to the investigations with this plea to Congress on January 30th, 1974.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues and our guests, I would like to add a personal word with regard to an issue that has been of great concern to all Americans over the past year. I refer, of course, to the investigations of the so-called Watergate affair. As you know, I have provided to the special prosecutor voluntarily a great deal of material. I believe that I have provided all the material that he needs to conclude his investigations and to proceed to prosecute the guilty and to clear the innocent. I believe the time has come to bring that investigation and the other investigations of this matter to an end. 1 year of Watergate is enough.
After the Vietnam controversy and the Watergate scandal, Gerald Ford had a challenging role as a replacement president. Nixon's first vice president resigned over a tax issue, and Ford, known for his values and down-to-earth persona, allowed for a change to his predecessor's negative image in the White House. Ford recognized his unusual office elevation and gave an honest opinion about the country's state on January 15, 1975.
26 years ago, a freshman congressman, a young fellow, with lots of idealism who was out to change the world, stood before Sam Rayburn in the well of the House and solemnly swore to the same oath that all of you took yesterday. An unforgettable experience, and I congratulate you all. 2 days later, that same freshman stood at the back of this great chamber, over there someplace, as President Truman, all charged up by his single-handed election victory, reported as the Constitution requires on the State of the Union. When the bipartisan applause stopped, President Truman said, "I am happy to report to the 81st Congress that the State of the Union is good. Our nation is better able than ever before to meet the needs of the American people and to give them their fair chance in the pursuit of happiness. It is foremost among the nations of the world in the search for peace." Today, that freshman member from Michigan stands where Mr. Truman stood. And I must say to you that the State of the Union is not good. Millions of Americans are out of work. Recession and inflation are eroding the money of millions more. Prices are too high and sales are too slow. This year's federal deficit will be about $30 billion. Next year's probably $45 billion. The national debt will rise to over $500 billion. Our plant capacity and productivity are not increasing fast enough. We depend on others for essential energy. Some people question their government's ability to make hard decisions and stick with them. They expect Washington politics as usual.
President Jimmy Carter's last State of the Union on January 23, 1980, unveiled the world he and America faced. Hoping for diplomatic and peaceful efforts to resolve issues such as the American hostages taken in Iran, Carter's speech helped explain his mission to lead the country from a moralistic point of view.
This last few months has not been an easy time for any of us. As we meet tonight, it has never been more clear that the state of our union depends on the state of the world. And tonight, as throughout our own generation, freedom and peace in the world depend on the state of our union. The 1980s have been born in turmoil, strife, and change. This is a time of challenge to our interests and our values, and it's a time that tests our wisdom and our skills. At this time in Iran, 50 Americans are still held captive, innocent victims of terrorism and anarchy. Also at this moment, massive Soviet troops are attempting to subjugate the fiercely independent and deeply religious people of Afghanistan. These two acts, one of international terrorism and one of military aggression, present a serious challenge to the United States of America and indeed to all the nations of the world. Together, we will meet these threats to peace. I'm determined that the United States will remain the strongest of all nations, but our power will never be used to initiate a threat to the security of any nation or to the rights of any human being. We seek to be and to remain secure, a nation at peace in a stable world. But to be secure, we must face the world as it is. In response to the abhorrent act in Iran, our nation has never been aroused and unified so greatly in peacetime. Our position is clear. The United States will not yield to blackmail. We continue to pursue these specific goals. First, to protect the present and long-range interests of the United States. Secondly, to preserve the lives of the American hostages and to secure as quickly as possible their safe release. If possible, to avoid bloodshed, which might further endanger the lives of our fellow citizens. To enlist the help of other nations in condemning this act of violence, which is shocking and violates the moral and the legal standards of a civilized world. And also to convince and to persuade the Iranian leaders that the real danger to their nation lies in the north, in the Soviet Union, and from the Soviet troops now in Afghanistan, and that the unwarranted Iranian quarrel with the United States hampers their response to this far greater danger to them.
President Ronald Reagan believed America's bright future would occur because of economic freedom and a powerful military. In his February 6, 1985 speech, Reagan proposed a way to defend the country from a nuclear attack, and the U.S. finally deployed a ballistic missile defense system in 2004.
Tonight, America is stronger because of the values that we hold dear. We believe faith and freedom must be our guiding stars, for they show us truth, they make us brave, give us hope, and leave us wiser than we were. Our progress began not in Washington, D.C., but in the hearts of our families, communities, workplaces, and voluntary groups, which together are unleashing the invincible spirit of one great nation under God. 4 years ago, we said we would invigorate our economy by giving people greater freedom and incentives to take risks and letting them keep more of what they earned. We did what we promised, and a great industrial giant is reborn. Tonight, we can take pride in 25 straight months of economic growth, the strongest in 34 years, a 3-year inflation average of 3.9%, the lowest in 17 years, and 7.3 million new jobs in 2 years, with more of our citizens working than ever before. New freedom in our lives has planted the rich seeds for future success. For an America of wisdom that honors the family, knowing that as the family goes, so goes our civilization. For an America of vision that sees tomorrow's dreams in the learning and hard work we do today. For an America of courage whose servicemen and women, even as we meet, proudly stand watch on the frontiers of freedom. For an America of compassion that opens its heart to those who cry out for help. We have begun well, but it's only a beginning. We're not here to congratulate ourselves on what we have done, but to challenge ourselves to finish what has not yet been done. For the past 20 years, we've believed that no war will be launched as long as each side knows it can retaliate with a deadly counterstrike. Well, I believe there's a better way of eliminating the threat of nuclear war. It is a strategic defense initiative aimed ultimately at finding a non-nuclear defense against ballistic missiles. It's the most hopeful possibility of the nuclear age, but it's not very well understood. Some say it will bring war to the heavens, but its purpose is to deter war in the heavens and on Earth. Now, some say the research would be expensive, perhaps, but it could save millions of lives, indeed humanity itself. And some say if we build such a system, the Soviets will build a defense system of their own. Well, they already have strategic defenses that surpass ours, a civil defense system where we have almost none, and a research program covering roughly the same areas of technology that we're now exploring. And finally, some say the research will take a long time. Well, the answer to that is, let's get started.
According to his January 28, 1992 address, President George Bush the Elder saw the fruits of America's effort to win the Cold War but did not think the country should shrink from the world stage.
We gather tonight at a dramatic and deeply promising time in our history and in the history of man on Earth. For the past 12 months, the world has known changes of almost biblical proportions. And even now, months after the failed coup that doomed a failed system, I'm not sure we've absorbed the full impact, the full import of what happened. But communism died this year. And even as president with the most fascinating possible vantage point, there were times when I was so busy managing progress and helping to lead change that I didn't always show the joy that was in my heart. But the biggest thing that has happened in the world, in my life, in our lives, is this. By the grace of God, America won the Cold War. There are those who say that now we can turn away from the world. We have no special role, no special place. But we are the United States of America, the leader of the West that has become the leader of the world. And as long as I am president, I will continue to lead in support of freedom everywhere, not out of arrogance, not out of altruism, but for the safety and security of our children. This is a fact. Strength in the pursuit of peace is no vice. Isolationism in the pursuit of security is no virtue.
Do the clips best represent the history or the mission of the presidents? I'm Mr. Frederick Scott Smith. Have a good day. I know I will.